So there is a very interesting, a very important, and I should say an extremely important event, perhaps one of the highest, of the highest spiritual order, that happened a little close to 100 years back. 100 years is nothing in the history of times immemorial and spirituality itself. Two of the ancient sages were born again, they are born again. They descended together. Whether we are talking about the Ramakrishna movement or the movement in Pondicherry, those are external institutions. But deep inside, there is only one force, there is only one mission, and there is only one work of the divine. Whether it is Mahacharya Ramana Maharshi, or Sai Baba of Shirdi, or Mahajogeshwar Gorakshanath Ji, or Jogiraj Shyamacharya Lahiri Mashai, or anyone, any Mahajana of that highest order, they are all working for one divine plan. There is no second institution in the world. Whether it is Abraham Maslow, or Ken Wilber, or Andrew Cohen, they are all working for that one deep institution of the Supreme. The interesting thing about this spirituality, the little that we or I have understood, is that normally we think about spirituality as an ascent of man, like living this material world and slowly raising ourselves through the moral and the aesthetic into the spiritual world. But there is not a different view, or it's not an either or, but there is a reciprocal and a complementary view, which is also evident in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, when Sri Ramakrishna says that the very fact that you are making one step towards the Supreme is that he has actually made 10 steps towards you. So every path of our evolution is preceded by an involution. So that is the gospel of these two ancient sages who descended again from the supreme heavens, the celestial firmament of light, bliss, and beauty, divine beauty, Shri. And they came together to walk together. And there are, of course, other sages like Vijay Krishna Goswami, and there are many others. And Vijay Krishna Goswami was a very interesting person who came in between these two personalities. He iterated between these two interesting personalities. And Justice Chittaranjan Das was a witness to that wonderful divine coincidence. And there was a whole galaxy of other people like Jogiraj Barodacharan Mujumdar, Dilip Roy, Kaji Nojrul Islam. It's a very interesting movement. And I think one of the most important personality who came like an interface between these two personalities was Sister Nivedita. If you watch Sister, she makes that journey between these two ancient sages, and they came together. I feel that way, and I get a lot of peace once I start thinking in that way. So in this seminar, we thought we must have someone who is aware of this double conjugate binary tradition of the two systems of spirituality, which is one. One was born from Dakshineshwar, raised by the master as a heroic soul, destined to take the world within the grip of his hands and change it. Was the first visible sign that India was awake again, just not to survive but to conquer. Is a comment which is made by the other person, the other sage. So one is Swamiji and the other is Sri Aurobindo. And they came together to take up a mission which is still going on. The work is still going on. And that deep mission, Swamiji walked at breadth all over the world, and Sri Aurobindo took the depth element in the depths of meditation. Both had the depth and the breadth element, but when it comes to the external movements, Swamiji prepared the entire field for the future of the world, and Sri Aurobindo came with Swamiji to take and the fruits and the seeds of spirituality and sow them on this wonderful ground. And there's a lot of story after this. So to make it very clear lucid and succinct to a wonderful audience that we have. We need someone who is just not expert in this field. We cannot have experts in this field, but men of realization, men and women who loves this concern. So here is a person who loves this twin concern, and he is a scientist, he is an educationist, and he is a scholar. He has been residing at Sri Aurobindo ashram for a long time, since he was 6 months old, where he grew up in the care of late legendary scholar Sri M.P. Pandit, whom all of you know, a lot of books by legendary M.P. Pandit on Sri Aurobindo, the mother, and the whole mission. He is presently involved in various activities, including video productions, teacher training programs, and even software development, because he's very modern. And that's exactly what Mother thought. That's exactly what Sister Nivedita also thought parallelly. A multifaceted personality which he is, he delivers his talks and conducts workshops on numerous themes, including the integral approach to education and the whole gospel of involution and evolution taken together, of human management, of self-development, of the dawn and the depth and the gravity and the spread of Indian culture, and of course science, spirituality and yoga. Today his name is all over as an intensive teacher and the making of the human being, the man-making and the woman-making mission. In the last few years, more than 5,000 teachers from more than 200 plus schools and colleges all over India have benefited from the program that he has floated. He is very respected Shraddhalu Ranadeji from Auroville or Oromia, Pondicherry. Let's give a big hand to Shraddhaluji.
The theme that I was given when I was invited to this August gathering was the evolution of the concept of the Divine Mother in India. A theme which cannot be done justice to in the short time we have. I will focus on a few important ideas which will be relevant for us not only for a deeper understanding, but much more so in our personal sadhana. India has the unique distinction of being the oldest civilization and the longest surviving civilization. Most of the other old ones have died out. But these two distinctions together make it also the most diverse as well as the most universal. And it cannot be universal and diverse if it does not have in its core something which is eternal, or vice versa. And as a result, it leaves us with a very big difficulty. Something which is so diverse has also necessarily many phases in its development. We can cross at least 3 or 4 distinct ages where the entire mindset of the civilization undergoes a change, and yet there is a continuity. We speak of the Vedic period, the Upanishadic age. Subsequently, we have other ages, including the Puranic age. And throughout this passage, as things become more and more diverse and specialized, there are attempts to reconsolidate, recenter, reintegrate on the basis of the new diversity created. And so that leaves for an extraordinary complexity. And if we were to go into it in that kind of depth, it would be overwhelming and confusing. And so we will stay with certain core principles and ideas which are present right at the beginning and which continue through all these ages and through all this diversity. And when we can hold them, we will find, even as we meet all the complexity of today, we will be able to see right through to that which is essential. The Vedic mind, Shri Aurobindo observes, was intuitive, very different from the modern mind, which is primarily rational or sense-based rationality. The Vedic mind being intuitive, it was supra-rational, and it saw things in a continuum, unbroken whole, with an underlying unity which is never lost. Everything that is seen was seen in the context of the unbroken whole, always in context. Contrast that with the modern mind. We see things in separateness, in pieces, and we're always trying to catch small pieces and then try to force fit them, join them together to construct some kind of whole. This is really the whole approach of modern science. It makes small experiments and then tries to create theories, force fit, but it never sees, it never knows, it never gets into the underlying unity in which everything is known, because it is part of the continuum. And so there's a complete contrast in the approach of the modern mind and the Vedic mind. The Vedic mind also, because of the sense of the continuity, sees the highest and the lowest and always knows their continuity and their relationship. And the result is, nothing is ever misunderstood, because all is seen in terms of first principles and the deeper, eternal, universal truths. And it is unless we can get into that kind of a mindset, we can never truly understand the way they experienced and articulated things. And if we cannot understand that, then we will never understand the foundations of our civilization. For the Vedic seers, the divine was omnipresent, immanent. Everything is underlying, essentially divine. And across space, across time, it is the same one indivisible, which is all. This is the foundation. And in that foundation, simultaneously, that divinity takes on many stations, transcendent, universal, and in the individual forms, including each one of us. When we begin to look at that view from the modern perspective and the truths of the Vedic seers from the modern consciousness, there are three kinds of distortions which we have to deal with. The first is that everything today is seen first in isolation and exaggerated to exclusivism and then placed against something else in contradiction. So the Vedic deities that we see, which the ancients themselves saw only as aspects of the same one, we see them today as each one separate. We see them in exclusivity, and then we place them in contradiction to each other. And the result is, the European scholars looking at the Vedic deities and the Vedic verses said, oh, this is a new brand of belief. They don't have one God, they have so many gods, and yet somehow they managed to push them all together and worship them all. How does that work? And they had to create a new category of their belief, henotheism, because it couldn't fit anything they understood. And it's a fact that in the Vedic verses you will find one deity placed, and then he is celebrated as incorporating within himself all the other deities. And then they switch to another one, and all the others are within him. But you can see how to the Vedic experience this was natural. It was the obvious reality, because there is only one. We only see him through aspects. But the rationalized mind cannot understand that. The second difficulty we have is there is an encrustation of historical baggage which changes terms. As they understood the term, today we understand them after so many filters of the ages. The third problem is specialized lineages and authorities. And each having taken an aspect of the underlying oneness of the Vedic experience, each exaggerates his aspect, and then they are seen to be in conflict and contradiction. So although we speak of Shad Darshanas. At various times they have had 10 Darshanas, 12 Darshanas. But although we speak of Darshanas, and they are Darshanas, they are aperçus, perceptions of the one underlying reality, still the schools fight each other and are in conflict. And finally, there's the problem of the distortion that comes because we are speaking an alien language, in English. A language which does not have equivalent terms of the Vedic concepts and experiences. Just as an example, Brahman is often described, at least in the English language, they'll refer to it as the absolute. But in the Vedic utilization of the term Brahman, it is the absolute as it turns to embrace its relativities. It includes both. There is no equivalent term in the English language. And so if you use the word absolute instead of Brahman, you will end up with a misunderstanding. Or equally, the terms which we have complex terms. Along with Brahman, we have Isha, Bhagavan, and others. Each of them captures a certain nuance of the divine consciousness. All of them are translated flat as God. But God in the English language has a very anthropomorphic construct. In Europe, God means a person who is sitting there and ordering you with limitations of personality. Whereas for us, the underlying idea is ananta guna, infinite quality, infinite potential. And the two don't match. And we use those words in a certain understanding, they use it differently, and we're actually at a crosstalk. Now, all of these are difficulties which we will have to face the moment we take into account the fact that we're dealing with a very complex and rich culture and vocabulary and experience. And it is only in this way that we can truly understand the life and work of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Swami Vivekananda, and Sri Aurobindo, because they lived and represented the Vedic experience, the Vedic perspective in their own consciousness. As you're aware, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa often said that my Vedanta is not the same as yours, suggesting that he was coming from a different perspective even of these terms. Sri Aurobindo himself makes a clear distinction between the earlier and larger Vedanta as distinct from today's Vedanta, which is a narrower and limited perspective. So having said this as a backdrop, I want to move to the theme itself, and we must understand this theme from such a deeper perspective. And the theme is this concept of the Divine Mother. Where does it come from? Is it just another projection of the human experience? If there's a father, there must be a mother? Is it a feminist perspective that says, well, why should God be a masculine? Why can't he be feminine? None of these. The whole thing goes back to a much deeper, profounder concept and experience and reality. The Veda uses a term to describe that, the ultimate, the highest, the unknowable even, unmanifest. That is the only word it can use because there's nothing you can say about it. It's unknowable and unmanifest. And yet, it knows itself. And when it knows itself and reveals itself, then they refer to it as he, Sir. How does he know himself? By his power of knowing himself, by his consciousness which dwells upon himself, and the power of his consciousness in knowing reveals what he knows of himself, reveals himself. To whom? To himself. This power is the secret here. This power is the means by which he knows himself, is also the means by which we can know him, because we are also a part of that experience. And this power is what we are going to concentrate on. It is this power of self-awareness, self-knowledge, self-expression, self-manifestation, which becomes the foundation of what we refer to as the Divine Mother. Adya Shakti, the original Shakti, which is his Shakti, which is himself in the aspect of knowing, in his consciousness, in his creative power. But then once he knows himself, then he is present as the Lord. And she is his power not only to know, but to manifest, to reveal all that he is. And what is he? Infinite potential. Ananta. infinite qualities, Ananta Guna. And yet transcendent of all of them, including all of them. And what does she do? She, being the power of his self-knowledge, she draws out unendingly all of those possibilities, and they pour out of him, and pour out, and pour out, never ever repeating themselves. And you see, this is an extraordinary universe. Nothing ever repeats itself. You can watch all the waves on all the shores for all the billions of years, on all the billions or trillions of planets, and you will not see two waves which are alike. You can see millions of flowers which are bursting out every day and then falling and are reabsorbed in the earth. No two will ever be alike across the history of the universe. Isn't that extraordinary? That's because he never repeats himself. He's ever fresh, ever new. And when the Vedic rishis gaze at him, they can only exclaim with one word, Adbhuta. Wonderful. Because of this extraordinary thing that he is, unending possibilities emerging continuously. And therefore the whole universe is in a constant evolution, because all that he draws out of himself is ever growing, is ever building into newer and therefore greater possibilities. Who does that? The power that draws out that infinite potential and brings into manifestation is She, the Ishvara and the Ishvari, or is Shakti. This duality now becomes the focus of our attention. Swami Vivekananda beautifully describes this by saying, when the waters are still, that is God. When the waters move in waves, that is the Divine Mother. Very simply stated, but it captures the entire philosophy and its implications in all the rest that we will discuss. Because if you think about it, when the waves move, the water is still water. The waves are never separate from the water. They are the water, but expressing a potency, a potential, a capacity to manifest, to become many. Where earlier it was still one indivisible whole, now there is a multiplicity which begins to flow around. And each wave that emerges is still the basis for many more waves. And each of those is the basis for many more waves. And so there is this unending pouring out of a multiplicity, and each of those is the whole emerging. Each of those becomes a further origin for many more to emerge, and there is this extraordinary fractal pattern that flows out. We'll have more to speak about this shortly. But at every step in this process of apparent division, he is the one who appears in so many forms. She is the one who gives form, gives birth to all those forms, and in each form he is present, from which again many more forms can emerge by her power, and in each of them he is present, and it's as if these two are weaving a complex dance of he and she. Everywhere he is present, everywhere she is his power to manifest. If at any point she withdraws, he ceases to be. All the forms lapse back, and everything goes back to the quiescence of the still waters. Without him, she cannot exist. Without her, he is unmanifest. This is the relationship that we see between the two. And all caught in this very simple statement of Swami Vivekananda, and all the rest as we will see shortly. There are other terms which also the tradition uses: Brahman Maya, or Purusha, Prakriti. And each of these highlights a certain aspect of their relationship. Maya, the word in the original Vedic sense, the root sound of Sanskrit is May, which is to measure out. She who measures out forms out of that which is formless, who measures out finite appearances out of that which is essentially indivisible infinity. And so it is a power to create that which is impossible. It is skillful power, It is a power which reveals but at the same time conceals in the very act of revealing. And therefore you can see it as a power that conceals, and in the exaggeration we will say deludes or falsifies, but the truth is it's just an ongoing movement of continuing revelations after revelations after revelations. And yet none of the forms revealed are completely He. And that's what makes this such a wonderful universe. When we thus proceed a little deeper, we find this relationship also represented in various other terms, various other traditions. I refer to two. In one of the Upanishads, you will see how the relationship between he and she is described as meaning and word. Without meaning, there's no word. Word manifests the meaning. Or in the Kashmir Shaivism, it is done in a very beautiful way. The description goes like this. When he chose to know himself and wanted to manifest himself, he began to move to manifest. And at the brink of the movement of manifestation, he paused and chose not to go further. Because to go further would be to lose his state of purity and transcendence. He pauses and instead releases his power, which then goes on to manifest. And just in this very simple description, you will find the whole experience contained of how the manifestation takes place. There is this initial spanda, something which wants, an urge, if at all we may use that word, and yet it has to pause. Beyond a point it cannot cross if it does not want to lose its station of purity and transcendence. But what releases and goes through is itself in a new status as power, as creative Shakti. So these are all various images which help us to get a deeper sense of that relationship of the two who are one. And in the play, there is a triple relationship. First, he supports. She looks at him, looks at his infinite potential and gives form to all of that. He supports, Sakshi, a witness, enjoying even perhaps, but detached. And then there's a second status where it sanctions. It says yes, or it says no. It says enough of this play. And there's a shift in the play, something else comes forward. Yes, this is interesting. And that grows. So he has now a choice to say yes or no. And there's a third station where he is Ishvara, the enjoyer, the inhabitant, who enters the movement of all that she creates and enjoys himself in every tiniest part. The Upanishad says, Ishavasyamidam sarvam. All this is for the habitation of the Lord. And what is the purpose of habitation? Shri Aurobindo explains, it is possession and enjoyment. And the divine chooses to enter the manifestation to possess and to enjoy. It is the reason why our souls chose to take births. The origin of this creation, he exclaims, is not merely will, it is delight. The secret of this cosmos is delight, and that is why we use the word Leela. And Leela is a greater concept than Maya. Maya is a secondary concept. Leela includes Maya but is greater than that. It is the idea of the play of delight, which as a play begins as a game of hide and seek and progressively reveals more and more. And as that revelation grows, each step is a step of self-discovery and mutual self-discovery and the delight of that discovery. This, in a nutshell, is the whole experience of evolution. Layer by layer, part by part, grade by grade, the consciousness reveals its divinity or its diviner potential. Until we come to where we are as conscious human beings, we become conscious that, oh, this is what the game is about. And then we have a choice. We can choose to participate willingly and speed up the game. This is where the transition takes place between what Shri Aurobindo refers to as the unconscious yoga of nature and the conscious yoga. All of our lives, across the last millions or perhaps billions of years of evolution, we have secretly been led. We have secretly been made to grow, bit by bit. By whom? By nature. We had no choice in it. She pushed us, pushed evolution forward. Until this point where we are self-aware and are aware of the purpose of this play, and at that point we can engage with her and consciously begin to speed it up. And Swami Vivekananda explains that's how you compress 1,000 years of evolution into 1 or 2 years. That is yoga, but the conscious yoga. No more the unconscious yoga of nature. And that's where we are today. We're here in this hall because something within us chose to participate and to speed up this process. And the masters came to teach us, to lead by example, and they continue to help us. Because that's the whole purpose of this play. We are in a sense forerunners of that whole evolutionary impulse of awakening to our own divinity and manifesting it in the play, in the Leela. So here is this concept of the unfolding evolution led by who always? Secretly, it is the Shakti. But in her inferior status, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes the distinction of the lower nature and the higher nature. There is the apara prakriti, which is almost mechanical, driving unknowingly towards what, not knowing where, pushing forward simply. And then there is the higher nature, which is conscious, which knows the larger goal and secretly informs and works through the lower working, which appears to us as haphazard, chance-based. But as we awaken, we choose to align ourselves with the higher nature, with the conscious, superconscious, divine Shakti. And here we come to the secret of the whole journey of sadhana. And I'm going to dwell on this a little bit because it goes at the heart of our own lives and the teachings of our masters. We recognize that in this whole evolutionary process, at each step, it is always secretly he who is seated within all forms, she who is working out the possibilities of each forms, and I discussed this fractal image. But it is not only a fractal image, it is also a hologram. Because remember, he is indivisibly one. And therefore every form is entirely he. This is one of the very important Vedic concepts. Our dividing mind sees this form as different from that form. This flower is different from the branch, which is different from the tree, which is different from the mountain, which is different from the land. But the Vedic vision sees all this as one unity, indivisible, remember? So that one consciousness is entirely mountain, that one consciousness is entirely tree, that one consciousness is entirely branch, that one consciousness is entirely flower. It is a hologram. Each part is entirely the whole, presenting a special front, a special face. The Veda uses this term, Jagatyam Jagat, universe within universe. Even the word is very suggestive. Jagat, the root, Ja is born. Jayate, comes into being. Gat is the root, is Gati, speed, which is born out of movement, born by speed, formed out of movement. You let the movement lapse and there is no existence. This is the nature of Jagat, the manifested world. Jagatyam Jagat, universe within universe. Each branch is the whole universe putting forward a branch. Each flower is the whole universe putting forward itself as flower. And each one of us, therefore, is entirely that, putting forward a special aspect. That means within us, within each one of us, is the potential of that infinity, Anantaguna, Adbhutam, the wonderful. This is the first important consequence of this insight. Therefore, as we grow, our fulfillment is in the emergence into our own divinity as conscious participants in the Leela. Each one becomes, to use a modern vocabulary, co-creators in the manifestation of the divine. Our evolution is still half done, the universe is still half made, and therefore we see only the struggle and suffering which has brought us to this edge. Shri Aurobindo observes that the universe wouldn't make sense unless what is to emerge from this is something so extraordinarily beautiful that all the struggle and suffering of the last billions of years would be worth it. That is the nature of the Leela, which we glimpse in so many images in the spiritual traditions. And the most wonderful of those images is Shri Krishna dancing with the Gopis. The Gopis, remember, represent the human souls in aspiration. And Shri Krishna draws them out of their hypnosis. We live our lives mechanically, forgetting why we are here and who we are. And then he calls out with his flute. And suddenly, the haunting call makes us forget the work before us. And we turn to the source of the call. And he draws us bit by bit away from the city, away from the narrow and pettiness, into the forest, into the open. And he hides behind the trees. And just as we feel we're about to lose him and we will miss the opportunity, he reveals himself briefly, gives us the stimulus of that beautiful darshana to chase after him again and again, until he draws us deep into the secrecies of the forest. And there we stand before him bared, and he reveals himself as our Lord. And there together, all of us, as the Sangha, we dance, each one of us in intimate union with the Lord, together forming the full play of the Leela. Such is the beautiful image that is given to us of the unfolding future of our evolution. In this sense, we realize that there is a whole purpose in this journey, led by that wisdom, knowledge, which forms the whole universe out of him, but which leads our evolution also secretly. And now comes the secret of the sadhana itself. After all, who brought us where we are? It was the divine Shakti, secretly. Who will take us from here to there? We can make an effort, of course, because we are self-aware. But she can do far more than we can with our limited capacity and with our ignorance. And so the secret of the sadhana comes here, that the more we can ask her help in our development, the more we put ourselves in her hands and place our problems and limitations before her, the more she can directly intervene to clear those difficulties, to bring light into our ignorance, to fill us with strength, and even to do the sadhana within us, as she has been doing for the last millions of years, unknown to us, unconscious to us. But the difference is this: as long as we persist in living unconsciously, we are bound to the conventional rhythm of the universal nature, lower nature. But when we put ourselves deliberately in the hands of the higher divine Shakti, we are disengaged from the old, slow, mechanical way, and we are lifted up and carried by the divine Shakti directly. And she is the Shakti who builds entire universes, sustains universes, and extinguishes universes on command from the divine. She then takes over the sadhana within us. And it is here that we have the image which Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa uses of the sadhana of the baby monkey versus the sadhana of the baby cat. The baby monkey has to grip its mother, struggle, work hard in order to stay with her as she jumps from branch to branch. If at any point you slip, you fall to certain death. Kshurasya dhara, very tricky, very dangerous path, but with all your efforts you can do it, hopefully. The other path is the sadhana of the baby cat. And the baby cat simply opens and offers itself, bends down, offers its neck, and the mother cat grips it from the back, lifts it up, and jumps from branch to branch. You still have to make an effort. The effort is to open yourself, open your most vulnerable parts, and give yourself, and then allow yourself to be carried. Not at that point to say, oh, not this, not there, not here. Carry me the way I want. That does not work. So an effort is needed, a purification is needed, but it takes a very different direction. And the whole movement is Atma Samarpana, self-surrender to the divine Shakti. And why the divine Shakti? Why not directly to the divine? Because remember, the divine Shakti is his power of knowing himself. And just as she casts out of him this universe, she also leads in the second movement, the rising movement. She leads everything in the universe towards him. She is himself in the movement back to him. And so we are really offering ourselves to the divine himself as Shakti. But Shakti is here within us, knowing us intimately, not somewhere there in a transcendence. She mediates between us and him. And therefore she knows us intimately, she knows him intimately, and she can work in us her magic most easily. There's a very beautiful prayer. I will even call it not a prayer, a mantra. A mantra which was given to India during the time of the freedom struggle by its Rishi, Bankim Chandra. Shri Aurobindo refers to it as the first of two mantras given to India for India's awakening. And in this mantra of Bande Mataram, you will find the Rishi describes this relationship in this way, in these words, and it is interesting, he uses them in the Bengali language. Bahute tumima shakti, hridaye tumima bhakti, tvam hi prana sharire. Also, Vani Vidya Dayini. So these ideas remind us, in our arms, you are our strength. In our hearts, you are our devotion. In our minds, you are our intelligence. Where is the Divine Mother? Right here within us. And when we offer our intelligence, when we offer our hearts, when we offer our bodies to her, who is already within us, she fills all these parts with her higher intelligence, greater strength, purer devotion. She awakes in us that which we do not have. And she leads from inside the journey of our sadhana. It's a phrase Shri Aurobindo uses, the Divine Mother does the sadhana in us. And always, secretly, it is she. Even when we think we are doing it, what are we doing? We are just making efforts. But the efforts only create a climate in which she can slip in, her nudge, her push. But now we can make an effort instead of having the self-assertive ego saying, I am doing the sadhana, I offer myself to her and she can do it far more easily and rapidly. And so in this mantra, there is one more line, Tomari Pratima Gauri Mandire Mandire, which we have to understand more deeply. It's not the external mandir, it is our hearts. Within each one of us, we are the mandir. And it is in our hearts that we hold the image of the Divine Mother and worship her there. Shri Aurobindo comments somewhere, in our hearts lives the unworshipped God, while we are busy chasing the images outside. But it is here, we are the temple. In fact, this is the deeper truth of the Indian civilization and our tradition of temple construction. You'll see the temple is in symbol a microcosm of the entire cosmos. Even as we are human beings, microcosm of the cosmos. We and the temple are identical. Even in the parts of the temple, they map it with the body parts. The layers are mapped with our sheaths, panchakoshaha. So you cross certain walls before you get to the sanctum sanctorum, which is the inmost center where the divine presence is seated. And the puja that you do is symbolic of the puja of the sadhana within us. Without the light without the lamp which you have to light, you do not see the form of deity. And what is the light? Your aspiration. The flame of your aspiration reveals to you the form of the deity. The whole arati, the offering of the flowers, all of these are profound psycho-spiritual symbols, offering of oneself as the fruits and flowers. Each of our psychological parts we give to the divine. And in so doing, he takes up the sadhana in each of these parts. We have an associated idea which is of the Divine Mother being of course manifesting Ananta Guna, infinite potential, 1,000 names of the Divine Mother, which was made reference to earlier, or in a special 4 aspects of the Divine Mother. The 4 aspects being the aspect of Maheshwari, vast knowledge, Mahakali, the power and force by which that knowledge is articulated into manifestation, Mahalakshmi, the beauty and harmony with which that which is being manifested is arranged and organized, and Mahasaraswati, the perfection down to the tiniest detail. All of these 4 aspects and the 1,000 names, each representing minor aspects, are all within us. And in many sadhanas, particularly in the tantric system, the chanting of those names is used like a lever, a gateway, opening that aspect within us, opening a part of us to the Divine Mother. And the completeness of the 1,000, the number is only symbolic, is the completeness of all of us being opened to the Divine without limitation, with nothing left in darkness, nothing hidden, nothing untouched, unopened, unsurrendered. And when that surrender is thus complete in all these aspects, in all these parts of our being, then the yoga is completed in a trice, because that is her capacity. When nothing in us resists, she can do what she likes. When things within us resist, she has to follow according to the pace of our limited capacity to subject ourselves, to allow ourselves to be transformed. So this I want to present to you as the secret of the sadhana. In one of Shri Aurobindo's letters, he explains how in the Bhagavad Gita, the emphasis is almost entirely on the Lord. The Divine Mother is not so much emphasized, because the goal of that sadhana was still to come to the quiescence and the transcendence. But he explains in the Tantra, almost entirely the emphasis is on the Divine Shakti, because the goal is the manifestation and participation in the manifestation of the Leela. And then he explains, in this yoga, which is the integral yoga, both of these are necessary. And you will see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa both of these. Because his yoga, his practice was also integral, beyond, of course, the mission for which he came, which included many more things. But his own practice was of this kind, which took both of these aspects. And in his teaching, you will find similarly both these aspects beautifully united. I would like to, with this background, I would like to close by sharing with you a brief passage from Shri Aurobindo Savitri, which is in the canto titled The Adoration of the Divine Mother. And it can be a kind of a meditation for us on the theme that we have been dwelling upon. And the text goes like this. When Ashwapati comes in the presence of the Divine Mother and she is revealed before him, he says, "Wrong could not come where all was light and love." And then as he gazes before her, "The formless and the formed were joined in her. Immensity was exceeded by a look. A face revealed the crowded infinite." So all of these represent that aspect of from the oneness to the multiplicity she manifests. So her being is of that nature. A face revealed the crowded infinite, incarnating inexpressibly in her limbs the boundless joy the blind world forces seek. Her body of beauty mooned the seas of bliss. At the head she stands of birth and toil and fate. In their slow round the cycles turn to her call. Alone her hands can change time's dragon base. Hers is the mystery the night conceals. The spirit's alchemist energy is hers. She is the golden bridge, the wonderful fire. The luminous heart of the unknown is she. A power of silence in the depths of God. She is the force, the inevitable word, the magnet of our difficult ascent. You will see rapidly a series of images in the Vedic style, each capturing a deep and cosmic aspect of her role and her action. The magnet of our difficult ascent, the sun from which we kindle all our suns, the light that leans from the unrealized vasts, the joy that beckons from the impossible, the might of all that never yet came down. All nature dumbly calls to her alone to heal with her feet the aching throb of life and break the seals on the dim soul of man and kindle her fire in the closed heart of things. All here shall be one day her sweetness's home. All contraries prepare her harmony. Towards her our knowledge climbs, our passion gropes. In her miraculous rapture we shall dwell, her clasp shall turn to ecstasy our pain. Our self shall be one self with all through her. You'll see in these sentences profound spiritual truths of the sadhana. Our self shall be one self with all through her. As we grow in her consciousness, as we lose our separateness in her and her divinity, she awakens us to the oneness with all the cosmos, all creation, and leads us to the greater divine freedom and the divine life. This is a meditation on the Divine Mother. Namaste.
What to say after this? I just remember a few lines from Swamiji's a flash of lurid light reveals on every side 1,000 shades of death, brick green and black and grind. I mean, he who hugs all forms of death and dance with destruction dance, to him the mother comes. So the lightning, whose one pole, as Shraddhaluji brilliantly, wonderfully and sweetly said, which is pegged to the earth on the one hand, she is also pegged up in the firmament, behind the clouds, behind the antariksha, in the celestial lights on the other hand. She is the bridge. She is the Divine Mother, who is mother at both ends, and she is mother at all levels between the two ends. And she is also perhaps beyond that, because she is he. ঠাকুরের ভাষায় তোরা যাকে ব্রহ্ম বলিস আমি তাকেই শক্তি বলি, মা বলি, মা ডাক বড় মধুর। ব্রহ্ম বললে বাইরের বৈঠকখানা অবধি যায়, মা বললে একদম অন্দরমহলে বেডরুম অবধি চলে আসে, এমনকি খাটেও বসা যায় তার সাথে। This is the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Aurobindo. And Swamiji is the bridge between that, because more than a moving prince, I think he was a princess also. Swamiji was she also. Yeah, that's the beauty of her. I think let us give a wonderful big hand once again to Shraddhaluji. And to this wonderful thing, Bidhu, can you come and just grace? We'll have the questions later, because let us have an uninterrupted presentation right now. Just to grace this beautiful deliberation. So, as a response, as a little offering to this wonderful mammoth, gigantic presentation of thoughts and thought churning, we have two wonderful spirits from IIT Kharagpur, Mrs. Arundhati Patnaik and Mrs. Apala Sarkar Ghosh. Which order? Okay. So Arundhati, from the home of 7 sages, she finds a place with Vasishtha. Arundhati is going to present a little note on the concept of the Divine Mother. And it will be followed by another presentation by Opala, another Vedic sage. Opala. Yeah, that's very coincidental. The 2 mother names that's there in the Vedas. She's going to give another small presentation on the concept of the Divine Mother. And this is complemented by a little exhibition which has been kept outside for the last 2 days. And this presentation has 2 exhibitions. One was Project Varanasi, which was complemented yesterday, and one is the inspiration of the Supreme as the Divine Mother. Yes. So, and it has been prepared by one of our Sandhi scholars, Tushar Kanti Shaha, who could not make it because he is in IIT Kanpur right now. And the other participants of this, it's Utshab Putatunda. Utshab, that's Utshab. So it is Utshab, Arundhati, Opala, and Tushar, who is not here. They have made this 2 little humble presentation. One on the origin and evolution of the Divine Motherhood in India, and the other, which is fairly close to what Professor Durga Basu was saying in the morning. It's another little humble tribute to the lineage and the evolution of the concept of Mother Goddess. So it's over to Arundhati.
Thank you. Respected mothers, Gurujis, and my dear friends. Today the topic of my presentation is the origin and evolution of the Divine Motherhood in India. And as we know that goddess worship has never belonged to any particular caste, creed or religion. And in the earliest phase of recorded history, this form can be traced back to taking from the Proto-Vedic period to the Vedic period, followed by the traditional, today's mother worship. And this short presentation makes an attempt to outline the origin and development of the Divine Motherhood in the Indian subcontinent, with special focus on how in the later phase Hinduism and Buddhism share many manifestations of the Mother Goddess. As you can see that she is the highest manifestation of cosmic force, cosmic functions of creation, preservation and annihilation. The worshipping of Mother Goddess is very prominent in countries like Phrygia, as she is considered as Mother, in Egypt as Isis, in Greece as Demeter, in Rome as Magna Mater, and so on. The Indian subcontinent exhibits a continuity of veneration of archetype of the Great Mother since her earliest past, and the primary Mother Goddess or the Shakti is the divine manifestation of creation, sustenance and transformation, and she is the Adi Parashakti who bestows life to every animate and inanimate things on the earth. Mother Goddess, perceived by various seers and thinkers, she is the expression of pure eternal energy of earth, which is in the shape of divine Shakti, found in the every form of existence. We cannot visualize this form of energy, so we give it the name of Shakti, who has the power of creation, preservation and destruction. As stated by one of the greatest thinkers or seers, Shri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, one must propitiate the Divine Mother, the primal energy, in order to obtain God's grace. God himself is Mahamaya, who deludes the world with her illusion and conjures up the magic of creation, preservation and destruction. And according to Shri Swami Vivekananda, I am the light of the sun, and the moon, I am the air which animates all beings. This is the germ which afterwards developed into mother worship. And according to Carl Jung, another psychologist, the Great Mother archetype is more than just the common or ordinary biological relationship. Rather, it refers to the universal need of our collective unconsciousness for someone or something to fulfill or provide the role of nurturing us. And worshipping the feminine as a supreme deity is embedded in the Indian tradition since so many days. According to David Frawley, she is the hymn herself, she is the soul which has the power to invoke the gods. She is the word and all practice of reverence, both the chant and the rhythm herself. And according to David Kinsley, Shakti means the power. In Hindu philosophy and theology, Shakti is understood to be the active dimension of the Godhead, the divine power that underlies the Godhead's ability to create the world and to display itself. As you can see that the concept and the origin and the history of mother goddesses in India, we have divided into several periods, taking from Proto-Vedic period to Vedic period, followed by the Upanishadic period, then the arrival of the Saptamatrika concept, which followed by metaphysical tradition to Buddhist pantheon. The Proto-Vedic people witnessed the worshipping of various natural phenomena as the mother goddess, and in primitive societies the women held a very dominant position, like nurturing and bearing a child, then pottery making, collecting woods and milking animals, and thus she has been associated with she connects herself with the fertility and productivity of the earth. So during the Proto-Vedic period, they worshipped these trees, then Mother Earth as the vegetation deity, and as the earth as their mother goddess. According to this is the Indus Valley civilization, mother goddess during the Indus Valley civilization, and according to Gustav Opper, the Indus Valley people believed in the existence of one supreme spirit of heaven with whom was associated and admitted to an equal and eventually even super share of power, that is the goddess of earth. And here you can see there is a figure on top of the right hand corner, and this has been excavated from Job Valley and Kuli culture, and the fierceness and the big eyes, some scholars have been compared this with a prototype of goddess Kali. And there is this instance of the worshipping of the vegetation deity, and one of the slokas in Markandeya Purana shows that that one of the Devis introduces herself as the goddess Sakambari, and here you can see there is a fertility and vegetation deity who is being worshipped during the Indus Valley civilization. The scene here shows that the seven mothers who are wearing bangles and everything, and they shows the Saptamatrika, the concept of Saptamatrika, who are associated with the aspect of Durga. And according to Oscar Perpella, these seven figurines also represent the stars of Kritika or Pleiades constellation, and the Pleiades constellation is associated with the birth of Skanda or Kumara or Kartikeya. Then it followed by the Vedic period. In Rig Veda, she has been interpreted as the powers of generation and fertilization. Generation, which implies to give birth to the world of names and forms, where Shakti has been interpreted as the female creative principle or cosmicum, which gives birth to everything in the world. And in Vedic layers, some of the important goddesses are Aditi, Usha, then Saraswati, Bak, Prithvi, Niti, Shraddha, and Shri. And Shri has been, in later periods, Shri has been associated, we associate herself as with goddess Lakshmi. here you can see some of the slokas. This is the Devi Sutta. There is a hymn dedicated to Bach, which states that I travel with the Rudras and the Vasus, with the Adityas and all gods. I wander. I hold aloft both Varuna and Mitra, Indra and Agni, and the pair of Aswini. And another sloka denotes to taking from Durga Sutta, denotes that Agni has been conceived as mother goddess Durga, the blazing goddess. Mother goddess during the Upanishadic period. Upanishads elucidate the Vedic proto-female as Prakriti, the manifest nature, and Shakti, the all-pervasive cosmic energy and transcendental source of all created entities. In Taittiriya Aranyaka, Ambika has been mentioned, and in Kena Upanishad, goddess Uma, who has been who appears in the Upanishad as another aspect of Brahma and the knower of ultimate knowledge. In fact, in Svetasatara Upanishad, Shakti has been described the ultimate reality in the following manner. Tvam Stri, Tvam Pumanashi, Tvam Kumara Uttava Kumari, Tvam Jinnadandani Bachashi, To Jata Bhavasi Vishwatamukha. Which means you are the woman, you are the man, you are the boy, you are the girl too, you are the old man tottering with a stick, taking bath, you have faces everywhere. The Upanishadic period followed by epics and Puranas, where you can see that there is a mention of Shakti in the Balakanda of Ramayana, and there was a mention of goddess Uma, who was the youngest daughter of Mount Himavan and the consort of Lord Rudra. In Mahabharata, the metaphysical goddess enunciates as the root cause of everything, and the eternal beholder of Dharma, truth, prosperity, and salvation. The earliest references to a group of Matrikas have been mentioned in the Mahabharata as Mataraha or Mataragana, and the Bana Parva, Saila Parva, Bhisma Parva narrate various versions carrying copious description of Matrika in the context of the conception, birth, then Abhisheka or marriage of Skanda or Kartikeya. Mother God is same here. From Linga Purana, we can see that Shiva is the ground of all knowledge. Then he can be identified with the meaning of the word. The word itself is the instrument which enables one to grasp the meaning, and hence can be identified with the Shakti. Shiva is the meaning, his consort the words. In Devi Bhagavata Purana, she has been perceived as another form of Devi or Adi Shakti. In Harivamsa Purana, she has been, she is the unmanifested Puritan goddess of the jungle, and the tribals like Santal, Bhuya, then Kond of Bihar, Bastar and Odisha, they used to worship her as the pillar deity or Stambeswari or Khambeswari, and she signifies both Shiva and the Shakti, the Prakriti and the Purusa. Mother Goddess as Saptamatrika, etymologically Mata derives from the word Ma, meaning to measure or to be comprised in, which means is to contain. Who is contain, who can contain us in every way. Rigveda interprets Matri as one who measures across, and as one who has true knowledge. The Matrikas mentioned in Devi Mahatmya and Markandeya Purana were created to destroy the demons like Sumbha and Nisumbha, and similarly in Matsya Purana they were being created to defeat the demon Andhaka by the command of Shiva. And they appeared in the form of three Devi, three Ambika, Matrikas, Mahavidyas, and Yoginis, who have features of both benevolent and fierce forms. And there is mention of in Natashastra, Michakatika, Sudraka, Charudata, Bhasya about the Matrikas, and they have different names, and sometimes they are the counterpart of the male deities, and they are called as Brahmini, Maheshwari, Kaumari, Vaishnavi, Barahi, Narasimhi, and Indri. Mother Goddess in the metaphysical tradition, around 5th, 6th century CE, the Devi Bhagavata Purana and Devi Mahatmya came into existence, in which Devi or the primordial Mother Goddess has been identified with the eternal truth eternal source of everything, the Nirguna without form, and the Saguna Brahma with form, the supreme unchanging reality that is Purusa, the phenomenal changing reality that is Prakriti or Sakti, as well as the soul within each living being. The text describes Devi as the three highest powers that are based on three metaphysical elements, which are the Tamaguna, the Rajaguna, and the Sattva-guna, and respectively they are associated with three Devis, the Tamasi or Yoganidra or Mahakali, then Mahalakshmi and Mahasaraswati. Mother Goddess as Mahavidyas or Tantric worship. Broadly, the term Mahavidya is known as the great knowledge or the supreme knowledge, which implies knowledge of absolute reality. Mahavidyas are 10 manifestations of one female divinity spreading over all the spheres and the directions of earthly and unearthly regions. The 10 Mahavidyas are the representatives of transcendent knowledge and power, the sources of all that is to be known. The 10 forms, as stated in chapter 3 of Tantra, while lacking any obvious internal coherence, are overlapping embodiments. The Devis are the overlapping embodiments of the great goddess Mahadevi, representing many of her paradoxical aspects, benign and horrific, creative and destructive, where the terrible aspect predominates. Sometimes the Mahavidyas are also called as the bestower of knowledge, buddhi, wisdom, and Atma Vidya. The last chapter of Todala Tantra, Bahadharma Purana and Mahabhagavad Purana describes Mahavidyas are 10 in number, and their names are Kali, Tara, Chinnamasta, Bhuvaneshwari, Bagala, Dhumabati, Kamala, Matangi, Sodasi, and Bhairavi. But in Niruttara Tantra and Devi Bhagavata Tantra, they are 18 and 13 in numbers respectively. Here you can see Devi in different Mahavidyas, the Sodasi Mahavidya on top left corner, then followed by Matangi, Kali as Mahavidya, then Tara as Mahavidya. And this is there are certain prescribed mantras and yantras to worship the 10 Mahavidyas. Mother Goddess in Buddhist pantheon. The primordial concept of Mother Goddess in Buddhism is the space that gives birth to everything and everything on this earth, and again goes back to itself. This is an eternal process. This primary matrix of existence is called the mother of creation. The true mother is emptiness beyond emptiness, or the darkness from which the light emancipates. The Buddhahood originates. In Asia, the great mother has been symbolized by lotus flower. Om Mani Padme Hum. The jewel in the lotus means being emerging from the cosmic Om, a closer look at almost all the images of Buddha that he or she is sitting on a lotus. It symbolizes the essence of great motherhood of Buddhism. The lotus is the Om from which the Buddhahood arises. Here you can see the different goddesses who are prominent in Buddhist pantheon. Hariti was considered on the lower left corner. She was considered the first mother goddess as in iconic form, and as an iconic form she has been found as nourishing and holding her children. In fact, Pragya Paramita is a central concept in Mahayana form of Buddhism, where she is being associated with the doctrine of emptiness or shunyata or lack of swabhava, and is also called as the mother of all Buddhas, the womb of the Tathagatas. The Mahayana form of Buddhism worships some of the goddesses like Prithvi, later developed into Aparajita. Here you can see another great goddess of Buddhism, that is Tara, who can be both found in Mahayana form and Tantric form of Buddhism, and in fact you can find her in Hinduism also in the Dasa Mahavidyas. Tara has been iconographically depicted as the consort of Avalokiteshvara, or she has been evolved from the teardrops of Avalokiteshvara out of compassion. The female Bodhisattva, she is the female Bodhisattva in Mahayana form of Buddhism, the feminine Buddha in Brajrana Vajrayana Buddhism, and in Tibetan Buddhism also she is the Aryatara or the female Bodhisattva. In Buddhism, Vajrayana is also worshipped as the supreme deity of Tantric pantheon, along with other deities like Chinnamunda, Singhamukha, Kurukulla, etc. So to conclude, the concept of divine feminine has been imbibed in the Indian tradition and culture as the primordial mother sees the absolute reality. Her form may be many, but in true sense sees both the Prakriti, the unmanifest, and the Purusa, the manifest. Taking from Proto-Vedic period till today, mother is being worshipped in various forms. She has been ascribed a higher form by various Indian seers like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda, Shri Aurobindo. As Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also referred to God as my mother, and he even worshipped his concept as a form of divine mother. As a priest, Ramakrishna performed the ritual ceremony of Sodasi Puja, where Mother Sarada Devi was made to sit in the seat of goddess Kali, and Sri Ramakrishna used to worship her as the divine mother. Even in India, we worship our country as a mother goddess, where all her feminine manifestations are considered as divine, taking from the nature to the human being. Thank you.
Revered Mothers, Swamiji, respected dignitaries and dear audience. It's a wonderful opportunity today to be here at Institute of Culture, Ramakrishna Mission, to talk about evolution of Tara and her symbols in world cultures. Tara, as we know, just from the deliverance of Mrs. Arundhati Patnaik, is the second deity of the Dashamahavidyas in the esoteric tradition of Tantra. And in short, Tantra is the weaving of the inner spiritual path that takes one from the individual to the universal self. Before we commence to the definite evolution of Tara at a global level, it is important that we understand certain worldview of philosophers and scholars regarding two areas of Vedic language and culture and that of the mother archetype. After that, we'll be taking up a brief peek into Tara at her origin in the Vedic and Buddhist cultures. To grasp a comprehensive perspective of her all-embracing dynamics, we have taken up a three-stepped modality to understand her semantic linkages in the archaic world cultures. Coming to worldviews, Swami Vivekananda has given us clear indication regarding the antiquity of Vedic language and culture for the modern day scholars to pursue on its linkages in the Indo-European language families. And Shri Aurobindo has pointed out that simple vowels in Sanskrit are the basis of all sounds, and their modification in the occult tradition of Middle East has led to what we know today as Western alphabet. Today, a large body of scholars in the field of comparative linguistics agree that Sanskrit is at least the prototype of an unknown antecedent language that is now lost in antiquity. In a recent work, Frawley, Fieldstone, Shubhashkar, they have inferred that India is the oldest continuous civilization on the earth that continues to fertilize the West with its profound spirituality-born culture. Carl Jung, the exponent of the mother archetype in universal unconsciousness, or what East calls the vast consciousness, when she is interpreted in the collective consciousness, the human psyche interprets her in mythologies, in divinities, in artworks, ritualistic practices, which Barbara Walker says that all these representations has laid like a guideline of the basic principles in societies, cultures, that the mother is the beholder of the whole world. India and Tibet perhaps are the only two regions where the worship of Mother Goddess, especially Tara, has continued till date since the earliest record of the past. Tara has directly evolved from the Vedic cosmic universal principle of non-dual reality, and which is the unmanifest manifest, Purusha Prakriti, or when iconically defined, the androgynous Shiva Shakti. Rig Veda has used the word Tarayati to describe the fiery goddess who navigates souls across troubled times. In Krishna Yajurveda, Shiva, the male aspect, is described as Tara, who saves people from despair and accords true knowledge. Today, the earliest cult of Tara Tarini can be recorded with the tribal communities of eastern and central India, and today Tara is an established phenomenon and to a large extent influenced by the Buddhist Tara in the post-Vedic period. In Tibetan Buddhism, Tara is the primordial mother goddess and an integral component of Tantric Buddhism, again the inner spiritual transformation. Her various attributes have rendered into 21 Taras, where she oscillates between the fiery, darkest aspect and the noble, compassionate, white aspect. So with this perspective, we have now we'll be commencing on the three-step review, where in the first step we'll be exploring the word Tara and its evoked thoughts. In the second, we'll be looking into Tara with the tarot cards of the gypsies, and in the third and last, we'll be exploring parallels of Shri Yantra in the alchemic traditions of the West. Coming to step 1, here we have investigated Tara strictly by the Sanskrit root Tar and its etymology. As we all know that the Sanskrit words encompass layers of meaning, here in the surface layer of mundane everyday occurrence, Tar, the root Tar, means to cross, to traverse, or the star that we can see in the night sky. At a finer level of inspiration, emotion, Tara is the higher notes in the musical octave. And on the highest esoteric level, the derivatives of Tara means to cross over hindrances in order to attain wisdom, or the star which is in this layer, the illumination inside the darkness of the fragmented minds. So with this concept, when we took Tara out of India, we found ourselves in the trail of Indo-European language systems. Donald Mackenzie, while discussing the primordial mothers of ancient Near East, says that Phoenician Astoret, the Assyrian equivalent Ishtar, Babylonian Astarte, they not only share the root Tar, but they also share the dual aspects of the light and dark aspects of the Oriental Tara. And they're often associated with the sun, the moon, the planet Venus, Lamb, all of which are attributes and icons of the Oriental Tara. And John Freely says that the Greek word Aster is a direct derivative of Assyrian Ishtar, and its evolution in English language, the star, has taken the illuminating aspect of Tara. Barbara Walker has seen deep Vedic and Tantric linkages in the Celtic portion of Ireland, where the sacred grove of Tara in Ireland demonstrates the mother goddess Earth, known as Tara, and the phallic icon is her consort, Taran, the thunder god. Here in Tara Taran, we can find the Vedic cosmic seed, the androgynous Shiva Shakti. It is interesting to note that the thunder that Taran holds is also the Vajra or the thunderbolt in the hand of Oriental Tara, the immutable power to awaken minds. In ancient Etruscan culture in Italy, the Turan is the winged goddess of love and beauty, often associated with the red and white symbols, again, of the Tantra system, and the meanings of the Etruscan word radiating from the deity, like Turan Ve, Tursa, Tur, are all the causative attributes of Vedic and Buddhist Tara. And in Finland, Ilmatar is the mystic deity of spirit, and Tar, an assembly of ladies of wisdom. Mark H. Munn says that the Luwian word Tarvanis, which means noble ruler, is a derivative of Hittite Tarvisa, a ruler which is dearest to the god. Here we are talking of the male aspect of the feminine Tara. Its derivative in Greek, Tyrannus, has taken the fearsome aspect of the Tara, and in English tyrant, the meaning has narrowed down into cruel and oppressive character of Tara and in a mortal plane. Here what we see, that the old land routes via Central and Western Asia into Europe and Africa, and the ancient maritime routes via the Persian Gulf have helped in the semantic migration of Tara into Europe and Africa. And in spite of the difficult roads of migration over thousands of years, the Greek and English derivatives of tyrant and star still preserves the illuminating and the fiery aspects of Tara. Coming to Tara in the tarot cards of the Gypsies, in 2017, a genetic study on the Roma or Gypsy community has attested the previous claims of linguists and historians that the original homeland of the Gypsies is in the heartland of India, especially in the northwestern regions of India. Gypsies, known for their folklore, their musical dance, ritualistic practices, are also believers in primordial mother goddess. And all along the route of migration out of India, they have made popular their occult practice through tarot divination cards, based on the themes of the Tantra mothers of the Dashamahavidyas, especially Tara, Kali, Saraswati, and others. Barbara Walker has noticed a deep correlation between the 21 Buddhist Taras and the 21 or 22 major Archana tarot cards. She says that this Archana tarot cards from a sequence to 0 to 21 or 22 reveals the ascending spiritual pathway to wisdom. And coming to the word Archana, both Latin and Sanskrit Archana are not only two identical sounds, but they also mean spiritual knowledge or the self-disciplined path to reality. Now, Cynthia Giles has recorded various tarot decks all along the Gypsy route of migration in Iraq, Italy, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Austria, and kindly note the names of the tarot decks are Tarik, Tarokko, Tarochi, Taroki, Te Arosike, Tarok. And phonetically and phonologically, all of these identify Tarok, the consort of Tara, or the counterpart of feminine Tara, the Shiva. Comte Gabelin, he was looking into the etymology of the word tarot, and what he encountered was Arabic Tariq, which means the way, Egyptian Tarosh, the royal way, Hebraic Troa, gate, Rota, the Latin anagram of the tarot, meaning wheel, that rolls on the way. So here we see the reflection of the Oriental Tara, who is the gateway to spiritual self, or the star that guides us in the dark. So we find that the Romani culture is deeply rooted in Sanskrit language and the Tantra deities of Dashamahavidyas. And all along their way, the Gypsies have embedded the primordial mother goddess through their tarot cards. The Gypsies had to encounter great repression by the intolerant medieval church, who condemned them as witchcraft, and the esoteric highest practice had to go undercover in disguise for several centuries. As a reason, and as a result, what we have today are simple fortune-telling or playing cards which have lost completely their actual essence. Coming to the third and last layer, the Shri Mantra in the alchemic traditions of the West. The scholars have defined Western spiritual alchemy as the divine marriage of the opposite forces that gives birth to the spirit body of transcendence, or the transmutation of mind that to attain gnosis or knowledge. And this Western interpretation of spiritual alchemy can be visualized in the sacred geometric pattern of Shri Yantra, where the innermost point is the source of all manifestation, the inner hexagonal pattern, the perfected manifestation formed by the interpenetration or interlocking of 9 opposite triangles through the inverted female principles, the upright male principles, and this is enclosed by layers of lotus petals that emulate the awakening of the Kundalini chakras in the spiritual body, and everything is encased by the square earth or the primordial mother. This is the tree of life in the Jewish Kabbalist system, which is the spiritual alchemic pattern meditated upon the eternal mother space and her 10 emanations or manifestations, which are called Sephiroths. In the mortal plane, these Sephiroths are the centers of psychic chakras, or psychic energy or chakras, and they are interconnected by a matrix of triangles, and the angles taken together form 22 spiritual paths and 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And scholars have seen a direct reflection in these two aspects with 22 major Archana tarot cards and the Oriental Tara, who is the source of all creative vibration, Bach, the divine word, or what West says, the logos. This linear projection of the Shri Yantra can again be found in the hand of Greek god Hermes. Alexander Rube, while decoding this caduceus symbol, says that the stuff itself is the spinal cord. The snakes entwining are the Kulakundalini that rises up to awaken the highest knob, the highest chakra in the body, and the wings emulate the transmutation of mind. And today the motif, the logo of medicine is a direct derivative of this caduceus stuff. The Chakra Philosophy tells us about the Panchabhuta, the 5 gross elements that stay in perfect harmony or rhythm in nature, and the diagrammatic interpretation of these elements in perfect balance can be seen in the alchemic symbols of Aristotelian elements of fire, earth, air, and water. And when these opposite triangles fuse together, they form the perfect hexagon, or the 5th quintessential element, ether, the source of all matter. And this symbol with the concept today is the basis of natural sciences and the foundation of inorganic chemistry. The Dictionary of Symbology says that the Indian Shatkona, the ancient spiritual symbol, is also imprinted in the seal of biblical Solomon, Star of David, the Freemasonic symbol, it's not showing here, and in the emblem, in the flag of Israel. So what we find, that the alchemic wheel of Mother Goddess has over ages has reproduced prototypes of spiritual alchemic symbol of the abstract in Gnostic and Hermetic traditions that has not only been the basis of modern scientific knowledge, but has also given us the universal emblems in the world today. To sum up the reviews of Stephen Knapp, David Foley, the missing link in our understanding of human civilization is the Vedic culture that has profoundly influenced and contributed in simple articulation of our words, in the worship of primordial Mother Goddess and her consort, and the highest esoteric realization of a self, It is time that we rediscover that intercultural fraternity, that human relationship with the cosmos, at a time when the world was not broken up into religions, countries, and use that understanding today to improve and inspire and enrich human spirit. Thank you.
I'd like to have Arundhati come up on stage, and I'd like to share a story with you, because most of the Sandhi initiatives are formalized in the various departments of IIT Kharagpur. But there is one cell which has never been formalized. It has its location in the technological students' gymkhana, where people come for playing badminton, tennis, and many other things. In that hustle and bustle of the youngsters of IIT Kharagpur, in one corner on the first floor, there is a small cell where Sandhi had its beginning. And in that cell, Apala and Arundhati and Utshab and a few others, they still sit and churn out these facts. The exhibition which is in upstairs, if you go to the first room, you'll find a big panel which is on Zarathustra, Prophet Zoroaster. And there has been ample evidences to show, starting with the initial works of Jyotindra Mohan Chatterjee and further works done by Apala and her team, that the Greek prediction of Prophet Zoroaster exceeding the Battle of Troy by 5,000 years is perhaps true. And Zarathustra is established as one of the Atharvan sages, which has come out at least 25 times in the sacred Gathas of the Persian. And it's an extension of the Atharva Veda, the Bhargavi Samhita. So if that is true, then Atharva Vedic tradition in Persia alone consolidated somewhere around 6000 BCE. And if that's the end of the Vedic age, then perhaps the Rig Vedic tradition is much, much earlier, which coincides with the prediction of Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, as he predicted in his Arctic Home's description of the Vedas. So these are wonderful pointers which are coming out from this cell, and nothing is disconnected. It doesn't mean that is a work on Zarathustra and this is a work on the Mother Goddess. There's only one work which is happening, the work as inspired by Swamiji, Sri Aurobindo, L. Basham, Richard Lanoy, Abraham Maslow, and all others. As I said before, as we said before, there's only one mission, there's only one institution, and there's only one work which is happening. Each small work, as Shraddhaluji wonderfully said, is a fractal of that finite, of that infinite, looks finite, but actually reflects that infinite. So it is the whole concept of the one containing all and the all containing the one. So there is nothing finite when it gets reflected in the supramental sense. Everything is a part of the infinite and everything is infinite. So in that sense, let us give a big hand to Apala, Arundhati and this team, because it represents a very special core of Sandhi which has never got formalized. But the little book that has gone into your jute bags contains some of these works done by interns from IIT Roorkee, from 4 NITs of India, from IIT Kanpur, IIT BHU, from IIT Kharagpur, students of architecture, computer science, civil engineering in the year 2014, more so in 15, 16, and then the latest addition in 17. So over a span of 4 years, we have been able to build all these traditions, and a few months back, Apala, Arundhati and others had actually gone to Bangkok in a very prestigious conference and presented their thoughts and ideas, which was very highly appreciated. So that is the little story. Yeah. So thank you again. And we break for tea, for chai, and after that we'll quickly reassemble here at around, let's keep it at 4:30.